at 10:01. Ready? Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, we have a new member today, so we're going to do it again. So part of the whole thing with the meeting is I say good morning and everybody out there responds good morning, and that way I can tell how much energy you have, and I can also figure out how good your mental capacities are this morning. Are you ready? This morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay. I hear lots of positive energy. Thank you for coming out on a rainy morning. I am William Herrick. I am one of the co-founders of the organization. I'm current president of the Mac Group. We do have a new member. That's why I'm introducing myself to Angelo. One of our traditions in the Mac Group is what we call the welcome, where if we have guests or visitors, we ask them to stand up and introduce themselves and tell us what kind of Mac or Apple device they're using, what do they use it for, and what do they want to learn how to do. Angelo, you're on.
Yeah, I got the 21.5-inch desktop, and what I want to do is find out how to hook the printer up.
Okay.
The printer, I downloaded the HP and all this other stuff, and I got my neighbor has a Apple also, and stuff he puts in, he put a picture in of his family, they're trying to print it on his printer, came out on my printer.
Smart guy.
Yeah.
Using your paper, your ink.
You know it's working.
There are some things we can do when we're meeting as a group. There's some stuff that requires a site visit. Okay, so I'll talk to Guillermo after the meeting and get your contact information. I'll figure you'll get a call from me this week sometime. The other thing I just want to warn you about is this is our agenda for the day. So we do the good morning and the welcome, you help me with that. Then we do news. Then we say, does anybody brought in freebies? Because people will bring in old stuff that they're not using anymore, and they'll put it on the freebie table, wanted and for sale, help desk. Then there's a small break between raffle and main presentation. We have the intermission. Okay, Angelo, anybody comes up wants to borrow money, just say no. But people will come up to you during the intermission and introduce themselves, make you feel welcome, because that's the key to learning something. If you're nervous, if it's white knuckle time, you don't learn anything. But if you're comfortable and you feel like you're within the arms of your family, maybe not family, your friends, okay, you're more relaxed, you're able to learn more and remember more. So that's one of the secrets, one of the little tricks, Machiavellian tricks that I work on the folks here. Right, Kathy? Yeah. See, we have ladies that come to these meetings because they feel appreciated, okay, not diminished, right, Phyllis? Have you ever felt diminished at a meeting?
Maybe one.
Well, we got rid of them. Okay. All right. So again, welcome to meeting number 293 of TMG Dayton. News items. Anybody have any news items they want to share with the other members? Going once, going twice. Yes, Rick.
I know it's going to be the topic later today, but there was the iOS 13.3, iPadOS 13.3, big releases this week, and there'll be another one probably next week.
Okay. This all has to do with what the presentation is going to be on, which is called, what I call AppleSauce. Now, I've been working with Apple equipment since the late 1970s, early 1980s. And back then, they had all these different operating systems that would come out. And after a while, we would just call them AppleSauce. Okay, it was the sauce that made the apples work. Well, we're going to do something different today in our presentation. We're going to have 3 different people up here. And one of them's going to talk about Mac OS. which is the Apple operating system for the desktops and the iMacs like Angelo has. And one of us is going to talk about iOS, which is the operating system for the iPhones. And another person is going to talk about iPad OS, which is the operating system for the iPads. Okay. And we call that AppleSauce. Okay. And we'll see how this goes today. If it works, we may do this next year again. No cracks about 3 wise men, though. Okay. Somebody's already done that. Anybody else? Say again? 2 wise men, yeah.
Wise man, huh?
Do we have, you're going to be up here, Bill. Okay. You'll find out what it's like when the peanut gallery starts throwing the fruit. Okay, moving right along. Does anybody else have any other news items they want to share? Going once, going twice. Okay. There's a bunch of stuff that is news in the IT field. I'm just going to hit, it's not Apple specific, but it does have a bearing on where computing and what you're going to be able to do on the internet going forward. So first one is, you have all these different websites. So we're used to the ones that are like apple.com, com means commercial, or apple.biz, it's a business, or .edu, that means it's an educational institution. Okay? And typically their email addresses will end with, the website name .edu. But there's another class of websites, and those are the .org, organizations. Now, previously this was owned by a part of the internet which was nonprofit. You may not have noticed, but it seems like ever since we got past 2010, people are getting greedier and greedier and wanting to make money more and more different ways. It might be, all the small little addendums that you find on your cell phone bill, or, extra charges on your your cable bill. But it seems like none of these companies, enough is enough. So they've sold the right to be the registrar for .org to a commercial firm. All right, so we're anticipating to see if they're going to start charging big bucks for anything that's a .org. If your registrar says, oh, you can't have that anymore, and they're the ones that are in charge of .org, or there's others, .xxx is another one, you're going to have to find a new domain for your website. So this is something that'll be interesting to see what percolates out of that. Another one that's going on is you may have noticed that some of the larger companies are the old large internet stuff, the Yahoos, the AOLs, have now been bought by cell phone companies. So Verizon, of course, owns Yahoo, and they own AOL, and they're in the process of consolidating them. And you'll hear the thing about they're going to generate more profit through synergy, and it's a merger of equals, and we all know what BS all that is. Okay, basically they're going to be doing a lot of right sizing, and people are going to be out. Well, the other thing that's happening is that even the big guys, like Google, are constantly looking for more ways that they can generate money. And one of the institutions that's owned by Google, YouTube, is the focus of this endeavor. So the era of the single person with a YouTube channel being able to generate revenue from that, and they can use it to generate more programming content, is probably going to be at an end within the next 2 to 3 years. And what you're going to find on YouTube is going to be the CBS, the NBCs, the Warner Brothers, the big content media guys doing more and more of their stuff on it. Okay, so just something to be aware of, that this is coming. The last thing is there's going to be a continued push for you don't own anything, it's always a subscription or a license, and your data is residing on somebody else's server. In other words, you become not the owner of the stuff that you generate, but rather you're the purveyor of that stuff to a larger corporate entity. This is something that I resist actively every day. I like my tax returns to be on an external hard drive that I can put into a fire safe, as opposed to sitting on some drive, some cloud drive somewhere in some country with some people that are able to have access to it because they're administrators. And so I would actively suggest that you might want to look and see what some organizations like the Electronic Freedom Foundation are doing and others, and they might be worthy of some financial support on your part. It's the holidays, everybody's asking for money. Okay, so with that said, that's the end with any news that I have for you right now. Okay, anybody else, last call? Any other news items? Going once, going twice? Okay.
Oh, yes, I have a news item. I was in Xenia, going into a Shell station to get gas before the price went up. My wife's in the car. I'm filling up the car, and the gas pump starts talking to me. You know, they have their ads, and it said, we think that in 2020 or 2021, the iPhone will not have the lightning thing, it will do it over there. So I think that's interesting, and my wife said, who were you talking to? I said, nobody. The gas pump was talking to me. I'll pass it on.
Okay, two items. One, very good topic. Internet of Things, all right? There's all these people out there who are telling me how good it is if my thermostat and my refrigerator and my car are on the Internet of Things, and they can talk to each other, and they can constantly give me notifications and stuff. And I keep channeling back to when I was a house husband, and I had the 3 kids in the house. And I discovered that if I wanted to know where the kids were, all I had to do was pick up my handset and try and make a phone call, because the 3 kids would be right there. So imagine, if you will, you're driving to Kroger, all right? As you get out of the car has talked to the refrigerator and is reminding you that you need to buy this and this and that. And, oh, by the way, I could use a new set of tires and maybe an oil change, and it just so happens that they have a new sale over at Grismere for it. So this is the world that they're trying to take us to. Okay. This is another one of the trends I'm actively resisting. Okay. I have enough trouble communicating with human beings without having to interact with a gas phone. Now, the situation you described reminds me of something that happened to me in an airport about 20 years ago. Before, when they were first getting the little jawbone earpieces that talk to the cell phones, I was in an airport, and this person is turning different ways, and they're talking, you know, blah, blah. And I immediately channeled back when I was a volunteer at the Dunning State Mental Institution. And I was thinking, oh, dementia praecox, schizophrenia, you know, where's this person's keeper? And then I realized, when I saw this Spock-like thing stuck in their ear, that no, they weren't talking to themselves. They were hearing voices, but they were talking to someone else on the end of a phone conversation. So expect more of this as we continue to survive and thrive, hopefully. The one I'm waiting for is the self-driving cars. That's the one I'm waiting for. Okay, so with that said, yes, Mr. Howe.
Speaking of internet security things, I came across a website. It's called, the address is knowb4.com. It's KNOW kind of log in with the password home course, I believe it is, and it gives you a complete internet security education on how to lock your stuff down. If you've got video cameras that are wireless in your house, TVs that talk to you and listen to you and look at you, it's an interesting course to go through. So just throwing that out.
Okay, what was it, KNOW?
KNOWBE 4, the number 4.com. And I think you may have to put in a password, which I think is called home course.
What I guess you do is, after the meeting, if you could just send Mark George's an email about that, he can add it into the notes.
Send it right.
The other one that I would recommend to folks is a service from the folks at Mozilla. These are the folks who make the Firefox web browser. They have another service called Monitor, where you can put in your email address, and through some sort of wonderful wizardry, they then tell you what services that are associated with that email address, like a Target store or a Dillard's or a Macy's, whatever, that have had security breaches, so that you can become aware and maybe change your password for that account that you have at that particular place. And that's called Monitor, and it's from the folks at Firefox Mozilla. Okay, yes?
That Ring thing for the doorbell, it hacked into that
Yeah.
thing too.
Well, which hack are we talking about? There's a company called Ring that I believe is owned by Google now?
Yes.
Okay, so Google bought Ring, and it's a doorbell with a video camera, and from your smartphone, you can see when somebody approaches the house, and you can tell, oh, your neighbor just stole your Amazon packages. Whatever. I had the neighbor say that to me, and I said, no, they put my packages on your porch. Yeah, anyway. But there's another thing going on, and that is Google had a special program with local police departments to promote the use of Ring cameras, and they would make the surveillance video available to the police departments without a warrant and without any legal, and you're tracking people as they walk down the street or through an apartment building with these Ring cameras. So we're going to be very much like the United Kingdom going forward, which has got probably the most closed-circuit TV cameras in public of any country in the world. So you're always going to be on camera, which is one of the reasons why instead of going to a barber, I now go to a hairstylist. So I'll be prepped at all times. Okay, moving right along.
Bill,
Yes?
since you brought that up, I was wondering if anybody has any knowledge on Ring versus Nest, as the other video doorbell, NEST. We're going to talk about
No, not Bing, Ring.
That's on the agenda for next month.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, go back.
The guy with the ball cap, Angelo, he's our program manager. So he comes up with what topics we're going to cover at the meetings. Okay, so that's Rick Cartwright. Okay. The guy with the camera over there is Mark George's, and he videotapes. He's also what we call our Apple ambassador. So when we do the raffle items that are on the table, Mark's the one who's is the polite term dog robber? No. Okay. Okay, anyway, but he acquires these things from various vendors for us. And the lady over there with the other camera, that is one of the most important people in our organization. That's Kathy Toller. She's our treasurer. She's the one who keeps the treasury, the endowment intact, even though she does sometimes go to Vegas. Okay, with that said, I'm going to say let's move on to freebies wanted and for sale. Does anybody have any free stuff that they've brought in today?
You didn't introduce
Going once, going twice?
Bill?
Yes.
You didn't introduce Guillermo.
Pardon?
You didn't introduce Guillermo.
Oh, I'm sorry. Angelo, remember Guillermo? The guy you gave your check, your money to? He's our membership chairman. Okay. I see, I knew Angelo had already met Guillermo.
Oh, okay.
So with that said, so we don't have any freebie items today. Do we have any for sale items?
Oh, we just have a few. The prize this week, it's not time to sell a Renoir, but, you know, it is Christmas time, so perhaps you're looking for a last-minute gift or something for a friend. I do have a second-gen Apple TV for sale, and just to qualify, any reasonable offer. And then perhaps you have a husband or a brother-in-law or somebody who might need a ODM reader for their Asian vehicle.
Is that the one you plug in that gives you the error codes for the race terms?
It'll clear error codes and things on your vehicle. It's just for Asian vehicles. And then I don't know, a few goodies. You know, I've got a smart plug, and we're talking about Internet of Things, so I've got a smart plug that will control anything that you can plug into an outlet, things like that. So see me at the break, and we can talk.
Okay, and that's Dan Whitehall. Okay.
Bill, just to correct what we were
Yes.
talking about, Nest is owned by Google and Ring is owned by Amazon.
Thank you for the correction. Now, notice something, Angelo. Nobody pretends they know everything, and when you get corrected by somebody like Richard, you go, thank you, because none of us wants to go around being, I can't use the word dumbass, but you don't want to be trained, conveying information if you're incorrect. That's the other one that there was a whole big kerfuffle with Amazon because they didn't get a military contract.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's all I'll say about that, because one of our other rules is we don't do politics or religion in these meetings. It's so nice. No politics, no religion. Okay, so anybody have anything, let's see, that they're looking for? If you're looking for an older piece of legacy equipment, no. Okay, everybody's got enough old equipment? Hey, they'll let you out again. This is good. Okay. All right, so let's go to the next one, which is help desk, and I have the first question. Okay. It looks like my wife and I are going to get rid of our old style cell phone with the slide out keyboards, and we're probably going to get smartphones. If I'm going for a smartphone, and my wife, I think, is going to be more comfortable with an Apple phone, what model do you recommend?
Are you going?
Yeah, I'll start with Larry.
This sounds retro, but my wife lost a phone back when I was in the hospital in 2016.
Yeah.
And so she went back and bought the smallest, she found that she could hold that in her hand and it didn't have places she could stick it. Now, the problem is, if you got fat fingers, you don't, when you go to do a text, it's hard. But just a thought, when we got the big ones and they're fine, but they just don't fit anywhere always.
Let me add two more pieces of information. One, my wife almost always carries a purse.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And two, she's on the faculty at Wright State, so she's constantly having to do two-factor authentication to get into the computer in the classroom.
You're answering that question.
Yeah. So that's really the impetus for the smartphone, so she can do two-factor authentication. So let me see if I can get you guys back to like models. How many people have an iPhone 8? Okay. And thumbs up or thumbs down? Thumbs up, Phyllis?
I haven't had it that long, but it's okay.
Okay, all right, so I got 2 thumbs up, 1 I don't know yet. Okay,
I have a 7.
go ahead.
Have a
My
six.
husband has an iPhone 8.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no security on it, but if they stole it, they wouldn't find
I'm
anything
not
anyway.
paying.
But I don't like the little dot with the finger thing because I'm getting old
Yeah,
and it doesn't recognize my fingerprints real well.
okay.
And I love face identification because unless I'm really having a bad day, it always moves me. But that's a thought. The only other new buttons I'm going to be coming out with is the SE2, which it's a rumor, a little more, but I think they might.
So if we go up one model, the next one up for Apple, is that the XR?
Yeah.
XR? Anybody have an XR?
My wife is.
And your thoughts?
I'm happy with mine.
Yeah,
And that does facial recognition?
yes, I like it.
It's one of the best prices you're gonna
Okay,
get.
and I got, Jones has given me like 2 thumbs up, so, yeah, okay.
Well, it's always a feature cost thing too.
Yeah.
You look at what the bells and whistles you're getting by going up in price by a significant amount.
Okay.
That's right.
The
I think the
XR
XR is,
typically,
the
if you're
10R
buying
is the
it
sweet
straight
spot.
out, is
But when you go in Apple stores, don't tell them XR, say
Yeah.
10R,
10R.
because they'll jump down your throat.
Okay.
Yeah, they
10R.
It's not an X. It's
And
not-
it's, price point, it's the one in the $800 range?
No, it's cheaper than that. It's
It
the
was,
cheapest one you
it's
can
come
get.
down.
$400 range?
No,
I can tell
I don't
you
think
now.
it's that much.
Wow.
I think they're that cheap.
Rick's looking
It's
at,
5 something.
There's always a rebuttal.
Sure.
On the other hand, I adore the finger touch thing. Well, my hands are very small, maybe
Yeah.
that's why, but I do it so much with that out in the community. So,
Okay.
Do you like to take pictures?
This is, my wife belongs to Tripod. Okay. Tripod Society is the local photography enthusiast group.
Get the 11 Pro.
Get the 11 Pro.
It's got a better camera.
The XR is $599.
Okay.
The 11 with just the 2 cameras
Yeah.
is $699.
Yeah.
And the Pro, 11 Pro, is $999. That's your price range. And that's with the smallest memory configuration.
So Harris is telling me that she wouldn't have to carry around her tripod and her Nikon and her, yeah, okay.
He's having two cameras. I think the Pro has 3.
Three,
Yeah,
yeah.
3 lenses anyway.
Okay.
Super wide.
All right, so I'm going to call it in. I think I've got enough information that I feel, oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. You know, I work at Bright State also, so I have to do the,
Yeah.
if you really want to be good to her, get her a phone and a watch. Because the Duo will be on the watch.
Okay.
And you can just click on approve on the watch.
Okay. And going back to what Richard had said about Amazon owns Ring and Google owns Nest, Fitbit, the company, they just got bought by Google. That's in the process of, yeah. So,
That would get evaluated by DOJ.
you know,
They said they were going to evaluate that before they.
well, they always, because that way they can squeeze money out of it. I know, I'm cynical. All those years working at the newspaper with journalists who are even more cynical than I am. Okay, moving right ahead. Who else has a help desk item? I'll go over to Bill Wharton.
I got some videotapes, mini DVD tapes. Remember the old little ones? I got a few that, I've got a niece that's got brain cancer. I'm trying to put together a thing from back at her wedding time. And I've got information on 4 different tapes. And I'm trying to figure out how to get that into using Firewire from the old, I got a deck and I also got a camera. Firewire coming out of it that works for getting Firewire out. I've got the dock, the Thunderbolt dock that takes the Thunderbolt, that takes the Firewire over to Thunderbolt. And then I open up Final Cut Pro and it'll control the deck, but it won't bring in an image. And it's driving me a little bit crazy. And I wondered if anybody else had already had it set up that they've used in the past just to import the tape. All I got to do is get the tapes digitized into files, and then I've got somebody that's willing to work on them to put them together real quick.
Can I see the tape?
It's a high def
Yeah.
tape. It's
I can do it.
DV cam. You can do that.
Have a deck.
Okay.
How much
Have you pulled it in through Firewire before?
That's not
Okay. So you-
Just verify.
Angela, this is another example of something. If you get enough people in a room and you ask a question, you sometimes get a good answer. Okay? So this is not an organization where Mark Georges and Bill Herrick and John are telling everybody, you know, we're not preaching the gospel. It's rather a community of, it's a community. And everybody knows a little bit of something, and we're dangerous when we get together. I'll just put it that way. Okay, moving right along. Anybody else? Help desk item, Harris? This is usually
Does it
advanced.
include printer information?
Okay.
The only way I could do this is to show you. That's total black.
Yeah.
No, it's not. See the ridges?
Yeah.
So I've cleaned the printer heads, I retuned the printer heads,
Yeah.
and I still get that because it yields that.
What resolution are you printing at? In other words, have you upped your?
No change in any of that.
Okay, so you have it printing at the highest resolution the printer can do.
I would think so, yes. I don't change anything on.
Okay, this is an Epson Workforce or a
Canon MX 922.
Canon MX 922
Has
inkjet.
5 tanks, inkjet.
Yeah.
Has 5 tanks and a single printer head. I've taken the printer head out, cleaned it with distilled water and
Yeah.
a little bit of ammonia
Yeah.
over a 90-minute period. Many washes.
How about rollers? Did you clean, are there any rollers that you did clean?
No, it's not.
Yeah,
It's
you
not
can
a
tell.
roller problem. It's a
Take
printer
it
head
closer to
problem.
Pandy so she can see. You can tell he's not getting an even distribution of black.
Oh, okay.
You know, what you can tell that it's doing the,
I got you.
it looks like, you know, a paint roller going across, and it's not doing it even.
And this,
What kind of paper are you printing on?
Sorry?
What kind of paper are you printing?
Well,
It doesn't look like a chosen spread
paper,
product.
but it's only occurred, this has only happened in the last month.
They're disposable.
Okay, so, snarky comment from the front, all printers are disposable. I'll make a comment, and that is, I do not purchase inkjet printers anymore. The price for the zero graphic printers has come down so much, and inkjet ink is too expensive for what it is, and toner is much more economical. So you can buy for under $200, under $100 in some cases, a very good quality color zero graphic printer. And you get a better, instead of it squirting ink, it's using toner, like a Xerox machine. Okay.
So what kind of printer is this again, say it again?
This would be a zero graphic printer. There's different methods for printing. Okay. I'm going to go full geek mode. Okay. Inkjets use magnets to deform the bubble of ink, the little squirt of ink, to make it into different shapes. And when it hits the paper, it's just like regular ink. It's going to spread or be choked depending on the quality of the paper and what the ink's doing. Another method is like in a Xerox machine, where you have a drum is given an electrostatic charge, where you have the charge, the toner adheres, the drum turns onto the paper, and then it goes through a heat process called a fuser. So basically it's melting the plastic onto the paper. So that's a xerographic process using toner. Another one is wax thermal. Now with wax thermal, you have crayons of different colors in the printer, and it's actually melting that wax and then applying it to the paper, and then it's cooling it instead of heating it to make the wax stick. And then you have another method. What's the other one? Oh, the old thermal fax machines, where you have paper with a layer in the middle, and you're actually burning holes in the paper to make the letters appear. So that's thermal printing. So there's all these different methods. Since I live with a lady who's into photography, I've had to up the game with the printers, and I've learned that any of the Xerox phasers, color phasers, they're low cost to operate, really good quality results, even on photographic paper. So. And the only reason you use photographic paper is so that if you're doing inkjet, that it will not fade over time. That's why you use the photographic paper. It doesn't give you any other special characteristics. Okay, I'm done geeking out now. Yes, Don.
Is there any chance that someday we'll quit putting beautifully machined gadgets in ugly cases? I've never seen a case that wasn't ugly.
Have you seen the new $53,000 Mac Pro? It's a pretty box. It's a pretty box. Now, I hear what you're saying, and there's a whole subgroup of people, they're called the case modders, where they will take something like a Dell laptop and put it into something that resembles an old style sewing machine with a wood cabinet and, ornate. I mean, there's some really gorgeous things that people have done to make ugly computers look pretty. But for the most part, no. Because ugly is cheap, cheaper to make. Okay. Did we reach some consensus? Harris, do you think you're getting a consensus? Okay, good. Then I'll move on. Anybody else for help desk? One more time. Going once, going twice. Great. No help desk this week. Okay.
I did solve one problem.
Okay, which was?
I kept asking for people that might know a lot about Photoshop elements.
Yeah.
Because recently I found that when I doing some erasing, you have a cursor, maybe square or round or whatever. But what got erased or colored was smaller than the cursor. Where in the past, it was always the same size as the cursor.
Or slightly bigger.
And, well, maybe that could happen. It didn't happen to me. Well, I spent about 6 months trying to find the answer to that.
Yep.
So at Thanksgiving, my grandson came in from, don't laugh at him, he's a 32-year-old mathematics professor. But anyway, I told him, I said, I just can't figure it out. I've gone to Apple, I've done this and that. What it was is you can change the size of your cursor in the operating system, like your little arrow. You can make it bigger so you can see it. Well, when you make it bigger, you make the cursor bigger in Photoshop Elements.
Oh.
But the area that gets erased or colored
is the same.
So all I did was move it back to the small little tiny flea that walks around the view screen, and it solved the problem. And that took an immense amount of time. I think it must have taken 10 or 15 minutes.
So now you know why we invite Ray to the meetings. Because he'll track these things down. It may take him 6, 8, 9 months, sometimes years. And then he comes back and we go, oh, okay, that's nice to know, Ray. Thank you.
I still want to know why I don't have my widgets and dashboard anymore.
Because the younger generation do not see a value in widgets and dashboards.
There's a lot of older generations.
But we are slowly but surely dying off. Pushed off the stage in the decision making. Okay, let's see, where are we for time? I'm going to say, if nobody else has a help desk item, that we are done with help desk. and it would then be time to start up the raffle. I'm deliberately trying to keep things constrained because we've got 3 presenters. And even though we're doing reports, not presentations, this is unknown territory. We have 3 of us up here, so I want all the time possible.
3 Stooges?
That's snarky too. I've had people refer to the 3 wise men and now the 3 stooges. Macs, the Mac Minis, the notebooks that come from Apple.
Thank you, Bill.
And it's called Mac OS.
This address, if you want to follow on your devices, type that into Safari, hit return, and it'll take you to the first page of where we're going to be talking. Should look like that. There's the address here. support.apple.com/macOS. Everybody good?
Yeah.
Okay. Does it look like this? Is that what it looks like?
Yeah.
Okay, this is a major upgrade. And what I mean by that is that any of your older software that is 32-bit is not going to work. So either don't upgrade the operating system or upgrade the software. And if you can't upgrade the software, they don't have any more upgrades, they're not supporting it, it's your SOL. Okay? That's the main thing about this operating system.
Is parallels an option?
Is it a 32-bit or 64-bit application?
It works.
Does? Okay, if you've kept updating your applications to current, then it'll work, because it'll all be 64-bit. But if certain applications do not update, or they don't have any more updates for it, it will not work under there. So either don't upgrade, or find something else to replace it. Or, this is kind of off on a tangent, but you could get a external hard drive, get some cloning software that will duplicate your internal hard drive on an external drive before you update the Catalina. Then you could restart your computer with your old drive and use that software, and then restart it and select the internal drive. Okay. Now, compatibility, certain computers this is a list of all the computers that will accept Catalina. That's not what I want. And if you take this address home, you can look and confirm that your hardware will work with this. It's broken down under MacBook Pro, MacBook Air, MacBook, iMac Pro, iMac blah blah, Mac Mini, etc., etc., etc. Okay? If you don't have one of these, you can't upgrade, and it'll tell you you can't upgrade. Okay. Now, this I'm very passionate about. Make a backup. At the least, use Time Machine, at the very least. What that does is it backs up your files, and it's a good thing to use. It backs up your files only. Now, again, back to the using a external drive as backup, you want to get cloning software like Carbon Cloner, Carbon Copy, and Super Duper, something like that. And it will create an actual duplication of your internal hard drive. So if for some reason you do crash or your hard drive fails at some time, you can start your computer back up with that drive. okay? Very, very important. I have multiple backups. Redundancy is the way to go.
I just want to tell you, I've done that. You all had one you showed me how to do that.
Yeah.
Because I use some legacy software to manage a farm. And I got such old stuff for Quicken,
Yeah.
okay, there's like 7.
Yeah.
And it basically, I got a hard drive, 2 terabyte hard drive I'm walking around with. It's a backup. It's basically my existing computer, and I can change anytime I want if I want to go to Catalina now.
Just restart your computer.
Yes.
Hold your option key down. Whatever drives, startup drives are available, it'll tell you, you select that, and it'll start the computer up. If you get newer computers, it may not start up with the older software. Okay. Very, very, be redundant on this because, the last thing you want to do is have everything go to hell in a handbag. If you need to free up space, this will tell you how much storage is available. I think it takes about 12 gigabytes to upgrade. And most computers, if you're upgrading, you're going to have that much space. Oh, back on the backup drives. Make sure your backup drive is at least the same size as your internal drive inside the computer. Okay?
And which ones are they again? What can you use for the backup?
Carbon copy or super duper. And if you're people that like to shut your computer down in the evening, there's settings within inside the preferences of those applications that after it does its backup, it'll shut it down for you. So you can have it run at 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever. Okay. Download Catalina. If you have the previous operating system, it's done in software update, and it may come up and ask you from time to time, do you want to upgrade? And if not, you'll have to go to the App Store. If you've got an older operating system, you have to go to the App Store to find the installation software, okay? Again, check compatibility. Right, MacBook introduced in 2015, MacBook Air 2012, MacBook Pro 2012, 2012 for the rest of them, and then Mac Pro introduced in 2013 or later. Those are your compatibilities. Again, make a backup, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm kind of rushing through this because we only have 15 minutes. Okay, iTunes is history. You'll no longer be able to use iTunes. It's now music, TV, podcasts. They all are replacing. You got 3 separate applications now. If you back up your iPads or iPhones to your computers, you used to do that in iTunes. Now, it shows up in the Finder. And the Finder is when you click on the little Mac face, oops, it'll be right here. Okay. Your iPad or iPhone will show up here in the Finder. And when you click on that device, then you'll see all the restore software and the backup software. And I recommend that, I know it's trouble, but connect your iOS device to your computers and do a backup to this computer, as well as backup to the cloud. Because with the cloud, it just gets most of it. When you back it up to the computer, it has all your applications and everything, so you can restore it. Do that however often you want to, but it's your typical regular backups. Yes?
I used to go to the library, get CDs, put them into the computer, put them onto my iTunes. Where are they going to be?
They'll be in music.
Music?
Yes.
Okay.
Right here. Experience music, TV, and podcasts.
Okay.
Okay. Now, something new and is pretty cool. is Sidecar. If you have an iPad, you can use that as a mirroring screen or a separate screen. And you can actually work on your iPad and it'll be on your computer. 2016 or newer, as far as the Mac is concerned, you'll need to have. Anything older than that, my computer won't work with it. And there's also a list of iPads that you can use. Here's your Mac, here's your iPad, and here's all your information as your Sidecar system requirements as to what iPads will work. Okay? And there's the instructions on how to connect the two. That's why I wanted you to have this web address so you could go through on your own and do that. Now, screen time. If you want to know how much screen time you're using, to monitor your usage, schedule downtime, set limits, like keep the kids out or off, that's something you can use. How to turn on screen time. Make sure your Mac is using OS Catalina, Mac OS out Catalina. Choose your Apple menu from System Preferences, then click Screen Time. And then there's options in the lower left corner, and then you can turn it on from there. But that's what it looks like. And if this is important to you to know how much screen time you're using. I don't know if you notice on your iOS devices, you get little blurbs telling you you've been 10% more, 10% less, and if that's important to you, great. Find My used to be the Find My Mac or Find My iPhone. This is what the logo looks like in the newer iOSs, and it'll locate your phone, your iPad, and if you want to know where your kids are, and you set it up with their devices, you'll be able to locate your kids, you'll be able to know where your friends are if they want you to do that, and you can snoop on anybody you want that'll let you do it, okay? Okay, voice control, if you have a disability, this, you can control your Mac with voice control now. And it's pretty extensive. How to turn on voice control. You got a Mac, you got to be in Catalina. Go to the Apple menu, System Preferences, and click your Accessibility. Here's where your voice control will be. And you can enable it or not. So if you want to voice control your computer, there you go.
Bill?
Yes?
Will that allow you to dictate to the computer?
Should.
For like Word or something like that?
It does even more than that. So you can dictate, but you can also give it commands. Like you can say, open a particular app, open Keynote. Then you can say things like select file, open, and open a file. So you can actually go through and operate the computer completely, and then you can dictate where you want to put in text. It does all that. It's really pretty powerful. I've used it on my iPad, and it works really, really well there. It just takes some getting used to. You got to learn how to talk to the computer, and not the language per se, but just, you can, for example, have to use tags, or you can have to use names. It's really powerful. It's something fun to play with.
Yeah.
It's in accessibility settings, so it's really quite cool. I've used it a lot. I like it.
That answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, photos. There's no more iPhoto. It's all photos. And I believe, what was it, last month we had the lady on discussing photos, so she pretty much went through all of that. And you can access your photos from anywhere on anything. And that's about it. My 15 minutes up?
Bill?
Yeah, sure. all of this is available at that web address that I gave you.
Okay.
It's exactly what I'm showing you, and that's what it'll look like right there.
Do your photos have to be on the cloud to access it from other things?
Yes. You have to, yeah. So if you don't want that, you know, be careful about because everything will be up there. You still have to allow permission for people to get in and look at it, but.
Can you put that URL back up?
Sure. Where's my text edit? There we are. There you are. And there's a lot more links within this little demonstration that you can, you know, really get down and dirty and check it out. But it was something I found on their website that really explained the basics.
You ready?
I'm ready. You're in. Maybe if we want to delve into it more, we can have a whole presentation on it.
Don't go too far, because if we have time at the end, they'll get to ask all three of us questions.
Okay.
Or maybe we'll even talk to each other. I'm going a more traditional way rather than try and do something from off of the internet. I've got a PowerPoint up here. Again, it is a report, not a presentation. I'm focusing on what's new in iOS 13. This is what I call AppleSauce for your iPhone. All right. First, the standard verbiage that you get from Apple. iOS 13 is faster and more efficient. Faster and more efficient than iOS 12 or iOS 11. When they say efficient, that means that it can do the same things but use less battery power to do it.
I know, my battery runs down fast. My battery runs down really fast.
Okay, sometimes it's actually a condition of the battery. We'll have a conversation about that off screen. They've improved the update times for apps. So you've got an application, it's on your phone, and it says, oh, there's an update. And it seemed to take forever in iOS 12 for some of the things to update. Now they've improved that. That's not a function of the operating system, it's a function of how many servers have they got on their end serving you. App launch times are twice as fast. So these applications launch much faster on the iPhone today than they did historically on the iOS of 9, 10, 11, or 12. App download sizes are cut up to 50%. So the updates go faster because the applications are smaller. They're having the application developers use more and more of the central operating system to do the stuff. And last but not least, Face ID is 30% faster. That's where, does the phone recognize you? Updated interface and applications. Okay. First one is an interface. It's called dark mode. Imagine, if you will, you're looking at your phone. The stuff that would be a white space in dark mode would be black. So it would be white letters on a black screen. Typically, that sort of mode uses less power than light mode. It changes the entire look of the interface from light to dark. Another thing that's updated significantly, Photos app. The editing tools were totally revamped on the iPhone, and now you can use those same tools in your video editing. Think about it. An image is an image, whether it's a series of them slapped together to show one after another, that's what a video is, or it's a still photograph. So why not make those tools available to the user to be able to work with both video and photos? Another new item that's come in is called Sign In with Apple. Now, this is a biggie, and I'm not sure if it's a good thing or a bad thing. But what it allows you to do is a new way, an easier way to sign into applications and websites by using one login, using the Sign In with Apple. Apple has some secret sauce that then will create a randomized single-use email address to allow you to sign into that website. So you never have to give up your real email addresses again if you use Sign In with Apple to sign into websites. Example, you got this email and they're telling you about this wonderful new website for tracking retirement income. So you go to log into that website and they want your name, first and last, they want your date of birth, they want your social security number, they want your address, they want your phone number and all that other stuff. If you're using Sign In with Apple, Apple Secret Sauce handles all of that stuff setting it up. So they don't have your real email address. They have an email address that when they try and spam it, it's going to Apple, who then decides whether they're going to forward it on to you or not. So just, it's an interesting concept. I don't know whether it's good or bad yet. Yeah.
Would they, if you go to that website a second time, would it?
Your iPhone remembers, because it's got Sign In with Apple, and it automatically signs you into that website using the stuff that Sign In with Apple set up to connect to it.
Just for that.
So it's sort of like where you could sign into websites with your Facebook account or your Google account. Only this is Apple, who has a much better track record with privacy rights than Google or Facebook. Okay, moving on. Another one that's significantly updated is the Maps app. You've got broader road coverage, better pedestrian data, more precise addresses, and more detailed land cover. And there's a new feature in it called Look Around, which is Apple's version of Google Street View. So it lets you see a street level image. So imagine, if you will, you're Midtown Manhattan, somewhere around 53rd Street, and you're trying to find someplace. Well, trying to read the street signs is not necessarily that easy when you got all those New Yorkers bouncing into you and walking over you. But if you've got your iPhone, you can say, hey, yeah, that fountain, yeah, and it's got the arrows, hey, yeah, go there, and the arrow says take a right. Street View, only from Apple. It's a cool little feature. The Reminders app. The Reminders app on the iPhone, I always thought of sort of a dumpster fire. You know, it's there, but it doesn't necessarily work the way you want it to. They've completely revamped the Reminders app. It's got a completely updated look, it's got a new toolbar, and it's got the ability to add times, dates, locations, flags, and a whole bunch of other stuff that just makes it appear to be more useful. Okay, moving along. Another feature, I'm not a big emoji person. You know, the funny little faces that people put in their emails and in their tweets and that. Well, iOS 13 has a new thing called Memoji stickers. So it takes your Memoji and it builds them into sticker packs. So you don't have to go searching for it. You can have like your own sticker packs that you use all the time for when you're sending something to your granddaughter and you want to send a little unicorn attached to it, you know, a little unicorn to your granddaughter. Or you're responding to a former employee that's suing you and you want to send them something a little less unicornish. Okay. And you can then, you can modify them. So, not my thing, but you can take the emoji and put like piercings on it so they have, you know, the cheek piercings or the tongue piercings or tattoos. You can do various things to it. It's sort of graffiti. But the thing is, once you've got it set up, your emoji sticker packs, they're available from your iOS keyboard, which means you can use them in messages, mail, and other applications. Okay. Next, Siri. Siri has a new voice that sounds much more natural. I always thought Siri sounded natural. But then I used to live in Brooklyn. And they have another feature in Siri called Siri Shortcuts. And it can suggest automations for you that you might want to create. So this would be the thing where, let's say all the time, you get up and you always want to know what the weather is, and you want to know what day and what year it is. Okay, some of us don't wake up pretty. Okay, you could have a Siri shortcut where you say, "Hey Siri, good morning," and Siri automatically then feeds you those items. It's Wednesday, Bill, and it's December, and the weather is going to be rainy today. Okay. For those of you who have cars that can use the CarPlay function of the iPhone, they've got a brand new dashboard for that. So you can use it for music, maps, calendar, and Siri support for third-party navigation and audio apps. That becomes sort of important when you're in the car.
Bill,
Yep.
Bill,
Okay, all the way in the back, David Jones.
on that map thing, I was talking to a guy at the Euchre get-together,
Yep.
and he said if you have a hearing aid with Bluetooth,
Yep.
okay, you can pair it to your phone, and it will tell you when to turn.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do that all the time.
The other thing that I've seen happen, I hang out with old people, older than me, okay? They wanted to take me out for lunch. We sit down at the table. The other three people at the table throw their phones in the middle of the table. I'm going like, okay, is this like a poker game? I got to ante up by throwing in my flip phone. And they told me about the wonders of Bluetooth hearing aids that sync with their phones, and it can do this noise canceling so that you can be in something like a Alexander's or one of these other chop houses where it's noisy as can be, but they can hear better because the phone is shaping that sound to just the people that are at the table. So there's some really interesting stuff with Bluetooth technology and phones and hearing aids. In fact, that may be a new device that I start to support for people.
Bill?
Bluetooth hearing aids, yeah.
Is that name CarPlay? It wasn't CarPlay before, was it? Wasn't it called something else if you had it?
It's been CarPlay for about 3 years now.
Okay. For some reason, I was thinking it was Apple Play or Apple something.
They advertise it as Apple CarPlay.
Yeah.
Or they have, the other one is, what's the PC side of it?
Yeah. And they didn't want to use Apple Car anymore because at that particular point in time in their skunk works, they were working on car technologies that would be, okay. All right, moving right along. Health app. The guy over there, Rick, he's the one, he did that presentation on what the health app can do on the watch. Well, the health app in the phone also has some new features. Hearing health. It can monitor your hearing health based on the environmental noise levels that you're in. Okay? If you're on a shooting range, you know to wear hearing protection. If you're on a construction site, you know to wear hearing protection. You may not know that you're supposed to be wearing hearing protection in the office when that one coworker keeps shrieking at you. The health app hearing health monitor will alert you to those conditions so that you can become more cognizant and maybe do some preventative stuff. Another feature is called, for the health app, is called cycle tracking. It's a feature for monitoring menstrual cycles. Okay. All right, last but not least, if you want to know more about iOS 13 and the apps I didn't mention, go to www.macrumors.com and look for on their, let me do this real quick. Everybody's got the www.macrumors.com down?
It'll be in your email.
Okay, let me just go ahead and click on it here. Hello, come on. Open the link. Thank you. All right, so here's the Mac Rumors website. You got the Apple Mac Rumors, the ad at the top. Right under where it says front page, that next row, iOS 13, go to that. It'll bring up this beautiful thing. They got videos up there. They've got, they cover every single app that's in iOS 13, and they cover the major new features, and they'll show you where they move controls. It'll take you about 2 hours to go through all of it. I cherry picked it and was able to get most of what I needed to know in about 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay, let's give Bill a big round of applause. So,
You're on your own.
this is going to be fun because the big surprise this year was that in addition to iOS 13, Apple said we're going to do something new. We're going to create an operating system just for the iPad, which gets me really excited. So I'm going to try to contain myself and do my best to give you a real quick lowdown on this. I'll tell you what it is. So I always do, when I do presentations, I almost always do these presentations where I just show you videos of things happening. I'm going to try to do this live today. So that's always really dangerous. You never know what's going to happen. But I want to show you a few of the new things and what they look like. The first thing I want to tell you is, that's my emoji down there in the corner. I gave myself some extra hair. Yeah. If you're going to do this, you might as well do it right.
Different color, too.
Yeah. So
Wishful thinking?
you just gotta, you gotta go.
Self-image.
Yeah, smile. So anyway, just wanted to show you that.
The truth hurts.
Yeah.
I keep trying to tell people in Boston.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk a little bit about iPad OS. I'm going to walk through a few of the major changes. This is nowhere near everything, but there's a great, on the website, I'm trying to send a link with my presentation where you can see some stuff, but you'll get this in the email that's going to come out afterwards.
Rick, move to your right. Good.
All right, so let's dig in. I made this list. This is the stuff we're going to cover today. It's a little bit small, but I hope you can read it. It's even smaller on my screen. And I'm just going to jump around into the features and show you how they work. So we're going to start with what I think is one of the more intriguing things they did this year. They completely rethought the home screen. So you remember what the home screen looked like? Let's just go out for a second. There's the home screen. And turn sideways because I'm on this thing. You remember that screen? Do you notice any difference right off the top? There's more icons on the screen. They made it so you could change the size of the icons. There's two different settings, small and big, of course, and you can change the size of those. That's really cool because I like to get a lot, there's all that extra space on the new screens, and you can't use it because they were always these really big icons. So what they did is, they changed the size of the screens. Do you hear me back in the back?
Yes.
Because I'm not using this thing right now, but I will. So they changed the size of the screen so that you could have these different size screens, the different size icons, and get more of them on the screen, which is really powerful. Is that working?
No.
Then I'm not going to use it. So that's number one. Number two thing they did is they added the ability to bring these widgets right up on the home screen. So if I slide over to the left, bang, there's all these cool widgets right off to the side. And you can make those either there all the time, which is the way I usually use it, or you can make it so that they're only there when you slide over like what I just did. Now if I scroll down my list of widgets, you'll see there's a lot more. These are widgets for other apps that I use at times. They're loading because they're not all loading right. But the cool thing is you can have these widgets that do functionality that make things happen. Like I have this one that tracks deliveries right at the top. And my calendar's right at the top. What's next on my calendar? Here's one for Carrot Weather. Carrot Weather is one of my favorite apps. So I can see what the temperature is. It's right on the screen right there all the time. That's really cool stuff. I like to monitor the weather. I'm a big weather nerd. So this is interesting stuff. You can, the next one is I use Drafts. That's an app I use to create short memos. This is a tool that I can automatically start creating voice memos or written memos right from that widget, which is pretty powerful. So widgets are really cool. This is a radical change in the way the home screen works, because now the home screen is not just starting an app, but it's actually making something happen, doing some functionality on the thing. So that was a big change. And I was kind of surprised that Apple went that way, but I really like it. So that's the home screen change. Now the other thing they did is inside of settings, there's a new area here where you can have a little bit of extra control of the home screen and dock. So now there's your size. You can adjust the size so you do more of them or bigger ones, so you can see the two different sizes right up at the top. So here's the bigger ones over here, bigger. There, that's bigger, that's back the way it used to be. And here's where it adds a lot more to the screen. And then, the next thing down, keep total view on, keep today view, that today view is your widgets. Keep it on the home screen all the time, or make it slide in and out. I usually do it like that. And now it doesn't slide in and out. You can control multitasking. We'll talk about multitasking in a minute. I'm not going to go through all this right now, but this is some control that you'll learn to use. And then the recent apps in the dock. At the bottom of your screen in the dock, these little bottom 3 slots right here, these are recent apps. These are things I've recently opened. You can use this for extra apps that you just want to permanently be there, or you can make it your most recent app. This will just change depending on what you've recently used. That's the way I use it. So I've had Keynote open, the App Store open, and settings. That's the last 3 things I use. That's why they show up. Clear?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the home screen change. So let's move on. Let's go back to the presentation. So the next thing I had on this thing is Apple doubled down on multitasking. The iPad has always been really powerful at keeping you focused on one thing at a time. You couldn't open multiple windows. You couldn't do a lot of those kind of powerful things you could do on the Mac. Well, they've really borrowed a lot of stuff from the Mac and brought it to the iPad over the last 2 updates. Last year with iOS 12, they added multi-screens. Does anybody use multi-screens? Has anybody tried split screen? Well, let me show you how split screen works just to get started. Split screen, let's say we're in an app like Keynote, and I'll get out of the presentation for a minute. Now let's say I want to, while I'm working in Keynote, I also want to have another ad open. Let's say I want to have Notes open up. So if I open my dock, I can grab Notes, which is down here at the bottom right here. I can drag it across the screen and open it in a second window. So now I have 2 windows open.
We're not safe.
That's not good. It'll come. It's just got to think about it a minute. There we go. So now I have a note called Demo 2 open on one side, and I have Keynote open on the other side. And I can slightly change the size of these 2. I can drag a little bit this way or drag a little bit that way. Is that working? That's
Yeah.
good. Get the idea? And what it allows me to do is I can drag stuff between the 2 screens. So I can take things that are on one side, drag it over and put it on the other side. So that kind of takes away from the ideas that were on the Mac for years and brought a little bit of that into the iPad. That's what they brought last year. They also brought this thing called slide over, which is where you bring a single app over and have it on the screen at the same time. So let's say, for example, I also want to bring my calendar up in a slide over view. Oops, I didn't want to do that. There. This is a slide over window. Now I got notes in a slide over view, and I can slide it around on the screen if I get a hold of it here. That's Twitter. So now there, I'm dragging it across the screen. See, now I got 3 windows open. So I have the window for the slide over, I have a window for my calendar, and I have a window for Keynote. That can get a little confusing, but that's what's there. That's the kind of view that they brought to the iPad so that you can have multiple windows so you can exchange data between these windows. It's pretty powerful. So for example, the thing I use it a lot for, if I'm writing a document, I'm creating a new document, and I want to have a web page open because I want to write an article. I'm writing a web page, a blog post about this thing I've been reading on the internet. So I could have some tech blog open on one side, have my writing blog, my writing utility open on the other side, and I can see it and work on it just like you would on the Mac. So that's pretty powerful. So it's kind of nice. It came to the iPad last year, but they went and doubled down on it this year and put a lot more features in. One of the big limitations last year was if I had, say, Keynote open one place, I couldn't open it multiple times. I could only open it once. Well, they fixed that. I can have multiple instances, and I'll show you how this works, of an app running at the same time. They also borrowed this idea of spaces from the Mac. Anybody use spaces in the Mac? Spaces is this view. Let me show you what it looks like. That's not it. So this is a spaces on the Mac. So look across the top of the screen there. You see all those different spaces I have open? Those are dedicated working spaces that I have. It's not updated again. I don't know why it's doing that. Let's see if it does it when I do this.
Is that in dark mode?
Yeah, I'm in dark mode.
I think we'd see it better if it wasn't.
There it is. Yeah, it is in dark mode. I can't get it because I did it at home. It's a snapshot of my computer at home, so I can't change it. But here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces on my Mac. I have different applications open on each space. So when I go into that space, I do focused work there, and then I go to another space to do focused work in the other area. That's the idea, is to have a place to do focused work. They brought that idea to the iPad so that we can have that same thing running on the iPad with multiple spaces. So I'm going to show you how that works real quick. So let's say, first of all, let's talk about multiple instances of an app. They brought this new feature where if I go to the bottom and I click and hold, like I'm clicking on hold on messages down at the bottom. Don't want to hold too long there. You click it. Now it says show all windows. See that show all windows right there? Down in the lower left?
Yeah.
If I click show all windows, it'll show me all the windows that are open of messages. And I can have multiples. Right now I have 2 different windows open inside my iPad of messages. I can add another one, and now I have a third one. So if I open that again, show all windows, now I have 3. So I could have all these running in parallel. I say, well, why would you want to do that? Well, the reason you want to do that is because you use that with all these spaces. I can have these each running in a different space, which is a little bit confusing, but let me try to make that make some sense. Okay, let's say, for example, that I am writing a document in messages, but I want to be able to look at my messages at the same time. So then I grab messages, I put it up beside, I pick one of these. So now I have my messages running beside my note that I'm making. This is one space. This is just one space. When I go to my expose view to look at all the different spaces that are open, notice that I've got one right at the top. It's that space that I just created that has notes running beside my notes. That's just one space. I also have Keynote running, but it's running all by itself. I have settings running all by itself. I have my calendar running all by itself. I could go over to my calendar and I could open another copy of messages running beside my calendar. And now when I look at it, I've got those 2 spaces, totally different places, running, and I can jump between them just by clicking this view and going back and forth. Does this make any sense?
Yes.
It's very powerful. I can't tell you how powerful this is in terms of making the ability to work and work very efficiently on the iPad. Now I want to talk a little bit about slide over. They added some complication to slide over that's rather interesting too. So when I go into slide over, so here's slide over, this is Twitter. So now you see Twitter. That's a window. I can open multiple slide over windows too. So right now I have 3 slide over windows that are open that I can rotate between. So I've got Twitter, MindNode, which I used to create this presentation, and Bear, which is an app I use to write in. So these are 3 separate apps that are running right now inside a slide over window, so I can actually use them in slide over with any apps I'm running. So if I want to rotate between them, I can just across the bottom of the screen slide and just slide between them, so I can just slide back and forth and slide between different slide over windows. And then I can grab stuff and drag it between the slide over window and the main version, the main window, whatever I want to do, which is really powerful if you're trying to look at something while you're copying. In the past, when you wanted to edit something, you'd have to go over to one app, get it, go to another app, do something, then go back to another app. It was all this back and forth. Well, now you can have both on the screen at the same time in a temporary way, and the slide over, you just get out of the way when you're done with it. That makes sense? Very powerful. The only thing I can tell you is you have to play with it to learn to use it. But once you learn it, it becomes very second nature, and it just flows. It's very, very, very powerful. Okay. Now, back to our list. Next thing I want to talk about is the browser, Safari. Safari had some major limitations on iOS that were real bottlenecks for working for me. Because there was apps that I used that when they would open the mobile view, they lost all their capability. So for example, if I opened YouTube in iOS 12 in Safari and tried to work in there, it didn't work right. Because it was a mobile version of the app that was served up by Google, and I could not get it to not serve up the mobile version, and it had very limited capability. Well, what Apple did, and the same thing for some other apps, like I use Squarespace to write my blog, and there's a few other apps, I'm not going through all the examples, but they just weren't full functional. You couldn't do things and use them like the browser should be used. Then you would try to use Chrome, and it was fair on iOS, but you really wanted it to work on iOS and Safari. This year, on iOS 13, the major feature to me of all the features that Apple did was they made Safari truly a desktop-like app. On the iPad, not on the iPhone, but on the iPad, Safari works just like Safari works on the Mac. 99%. I mean, there's hardly nothing I have found that doesn't work the way it works on the Mac, which is really, really powerful. So when you're in YouTube, for example, you all of a sudden had this ability to do everything I can do on the Mac. So the one time I would have to sometimes go to a Mac to work, and I used to always work on the Mac, so I didn't have a problem doing it, but I had to go to the Mac if I wanted to work in YouTube the way I like to use it, because the only place it would work was on my Mac. Now I do all that stuff on the iPad, I hardly ever go to the Mac. So it's very, very powerful. So let me go to Safari. So they did a few things. Number one, they did that, so now you can open a full web version of whatever website you're on. You don't get that mobile version anymore. That's very powerful. It works that way. If you go up to the top, you see that little box up there in the upper corner, the little, I can't see it because of the colors, but it's the little overlapping windows. If you just push on that and hold it, you get this box. This has got some new stuff in it, and the colors are terrible, I apologize, but it says, the top item says, close all 19 windows. If you've got a whole bunch of windows open, like 85 windows, I was at the Apple store one day fixing something that was wrong with one of my systems, and I heard the Apple tech, the genius, talking to the guy who was helping with his computer problems. He had 105 tabs open on his iPad. No, it was his iPhone. 105 tabs. And he couldn't figure out why things were so slow. So the message here is you can close them all at once.
That's great.
And it's a pretty cool feature, because I've had this happen where I just wanted to close everything, but I didn't want to close Safari. You can hit that button and close all of them at once. I have 19 open right now. Or you can close just this tab, just the one you're on. So if I don't want to look at Bill's face there anymore, I can just hit close this tab and close just this one tab. I can open a new window. I can merge all windows. I can, because if you have multiple windows and you want to group them together and just have a bunch of tabs, you could do that. You can open a new private tab if you want to open a private tab, or create a new tab that's not a private tab. So That's kind of got some new stuff in it. It was there before, but they added some features, which are really cool. So I really love the changes they made to the browser. Lastly, and I'm not going to go through all these features, they added a ton of security inside the browser. So they added some new features to make it more difficult for you to be tracked. So they changed how you are tracked and how the ability for advertisers to track you and the security that comes with that. And that's a whole separate discussion that we could spend the next hour talking about. And you can read about it on the Apple website. If you just search for it there, it's very powerful, and I don't want to spend more time on that. All right. Yes?
Rick, what you're saying, I guess it kind of makes me want to ask the question, why do you necessarily need a desktop anymore?
I don't. To be very honest, I don't need a desktop. I gave my laptop to my son who's in college, and I haven't regretted it. I have a very old 2012 Mac Mini that I keep around to do one thing. It runs 24/7 to back up my photos so that they can get stored on a remote hard drive in case something happens to the cloud. And that's the only reason I keep that Mac running, because I do everything else on here.
So you have a keyboard?
It has a keyboard on it. Yeah, I have a keyboard on it. It sits in the corner of the room, one of the rooms in the house, and it sits there and it runs 24/7. And every time I take a picture, like if I take your picture right now, in a few more minutes from now, it'll download to my Mac at home, and then on my next backup that runs on, I use Carbon Copy Cloner. When Carbon Copy Cloner runs again, it'll take that picture that's on a hard drive on my Mac and back it up to a separate backup as well as the Backblaze. I have multiple backups of my pictures, and pictures I take very seriously, so that's why it's there.
I think she was talking about your iPad.
Oh, I don't keep it on. It's got a keyboard on it. I don't always use it with a keyboard, but I do too. I got a keyboard on my iPad. I can't show you right now, but
You're using the internal keyboard? You're not even...
I use an external keyboard. I can show it to you when I can lift it up.
Oh, an external keyboard.
I use an external
Thank
keyboard.
you.
Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is what they did with Files. The Files app came last year. It was new in iOS 12. It was your first ability to kind of have something that was a little bit like Finder, but not exactly like Finder. And I'm going to blow through this really fast, and I want to show you a picture. This is an external hard drive. I use this hard drive with this iPad all the time. And I connect it like this. I got to find it down here. I connect it with this USB hub. I have a couple different ones. This is one I got here out of the drawing. I really like this one. And I connect it to this hard drive. And then what it allows me to do is I can take files off of my iPad and just drag them right over and drop them on this drive. And take files that are on this drive and drag them back over and pull them in the iPad. So I don't do that a lot, but when I want to do it, it gives me the ability to move files around just like you would on a Mac. And it's not quite as powerful as Finder, but it allows enough that I can functionally get things done that I want to get done if I have really big files that I want to just take off the Mac because I'm not using off the iPad that I don't use anymore. And you can plug other things into the USB port too. So like right now I've got the USB port plugged up to the video output and I'm driving this display. But you can connect flash drives, you can connect all kinds of USB stuff. So anything that's USB 2, I can connect here. Microphones, I've connected microphones. I've connected a whole host of things to that USB drive, and it's gotten really, really powerful. So they're really putting a lot of effort into making USB-C very powerful on the iPad, and I really love the way it works. That's all I got. I will answer any questions. All the stuff that's in iOS 13 is in here too. The keyboard, there's new keyboard stuff, really cool keyboard stuff. There's cool copy and paste gestures, new gestures. There's new dark mode, it was already mentioned. New photos updates in here. I'm not going to cover any of that. The new font, you can control fonts. Very powerful with how you can use fonts on the iPad. It's just great stuff. I urge you to try it. It's really very nice. Any questions for anybody? Bill, answer any questions I can't answer, or Bill, the other Bill?
I guess
Bill's already answered.
Bill's already answering questions.
I guess I can't get 13 on my iPad 2 mini.
How old is it?
It's a mini 2.
All two, probably not.
I've got 12.4, it seems that's.
Yeah, that's probably the last one.
That's the last one.
Yeah, you have to, the list is on the webpage, I didn't put the list in here, but there is a list of what you have to have. And I think it's gotta be at least iPad 5 or whatever that one was, the one before the last one. Other questions? Yeah, that's the one I thought, 5. All right, look forward to next month. Bill, you have any closing comments?
Nope. Thank you.
Next month, we're gonna talk about, I think we're gonna talk about home automation updates. We've done that once before, but we're gonna update next month. There's been a lot of changes. That's next month.